Do you ever feel like you are fighting a war that nobody else can see? You sit in a comfortable chair in a quiet room, yet your muscles are tense, your jaw is clenched, and your mind is scanning for the next problem to solve. You have survived the difficult times, you have overcome the obstacles, but you cannot switch off the survival mode. You are safe, but your body screams that you are in danger. This creates a profound exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. If this sounds like you, then you need to hear the story of Arthur. Arthur was known across the 7 kingdoms not just as a soldier, but as the unbroken shield. He was the commander who had never lost a battle. He had saved his city from invaders, from famine, and from rebellion. He was a hero, covered in medals and scars. To the citizens, Arthur was the symbol of ultimate security. But to Arthur, life was a never-ending siege. Even though the war had ended 5 years ago, he still wore his chainmail beneath his tunic. He slept with a dagger under his pillow. When he walked into a banquet hall, he didn't see friends and food. He saw exits, potential assassins, and structural weaknesses. His greatest strength, his eternal vigilance, had become a prison. He had conquered the enemy outside the walls, but he was being destroyed by the enemy inside his head. He had forgotten how to breathe without calculating the cost. Desperate for a moment of silence, Arthur rode his horse far beyond the city limits, deep into the rolling green hills of the countryside. He came upon a small, unremarkable farm. There were no high walls, no watchtowers, no guard dogs, just an open field and an old man named Thomas kneeling in the dirt. Thomas was pruning a grapevine. He moved with a slowness that irritated Arthur. The old man didn't look up, even as the heavily armed warrior cast a shadow over him. "Old man," Arthur barked, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his sword. "You are exposed here. Bandits could come, wolves could attack. Where are your walls? Where is your weapon?" Thomas finished his cut, wiped his shears on a cloth, and looked up. His face was weathered like old leather, but his eyes were bright and incredibly still. "I have no weapon, Commander," Thomas said, "because I am not fighting the land. I am working with it." Arthur scoffed. "Peace is just the pause between wars. If you are not ready to fight, you will lose what you have." Thomas stood up slowly and gestured to the field. "Look at this vine, Arthur. If I treated it like an enemy, if I stayed up all night guarding it, clutching it tight to protect it, what would happen?" "It would be safe," Arthur insisted. "No," Thomas corrected him gently. "It would die. To grow, the vine needs space. It needs me to step back. It needs me to trust that the sun will rise and the rain will fall without my command. You are a master of defense, Arthur, but you cannot defend a seed into growing. You can only nurture it." Arthur looked at the open field. It felt terrifyingly vulnerable. "If I let my guard down," he whispered, his voice cracking, "everything falls apart." Thomas walked over and did something unthinkable. He reached out and gently placed his hand over Arthur's hand, which was still gripping the sword handle. "The war is over, my son," Thomas said softly. "But look at your hand. It is still a fist. You have been clenching this sword for so long that you have forgotten how to open your palm. And you cannot receive anything, not love, not rest, not peace with a clenched fist. You can only strike." The metaphor struck Arthur harder than any arrow ever had. He realized he was treating his life like a battlefield. He treated his family like civilians to be protected, not people to be loved. He treated his rest like a tactical error. He was the unbroken shield, but because he was always a shield, he could never be a human. Arthur stayed on the farm for a season. The hardest part wasn't the physical labor, it was the mental surrender. The first time he tried to plant seeds, he dug the holes furiously, as if attacking the earth. Thomas made him stop. Softly, Thomas would say, "The earth is not your opponent. Surrender to the rhythm." Slowly, painfully, Arthur learned to leave his sword in the barn. He learned that not every noise in the night was a threat. Sometimes it was just the wind. He learned that if he didn't worry about the crops for one night, they would still be there in the morning. When Arthur finally returned to the city, he didn't resign. He was still a leader, but he stopped wearing armor to dinner. He stopped scanning the room for exits and started looking at the faces of his friends. He realized that true strength wasn't about the ability to fight forever. It was about the courage to put the weapon down when the battle was done. We live in a world that glorifies the grinder, the hustler, the warrior. We are told to crush it, to battle through the week, to conquer our goals. We view our emails as enemies and our calendars as battlegrounds. We walk through life with a clenched fist, ready for a disaster that usually never comes. But the lesson of the farmer is clear. You cannot force your life to bloom by sheer will and aggression. Control is an illusion that costs you your peace. There is a time to fight, yes, but there is a more important time to uncurl your fingers, let go of the handle, and trust. Ask yourself today, what is the sword you are still carrying from a battle that ended years ago? Is it the need to be perfect? The need to be right? The need to be in control of everyone around you? Put it down just for a moment. Open your hand. You might find that when you stop fighting your life, you finally start living it.